Okay, see if we can get this done here. This is my review, double review of the Squale 1545 30 Atmos blue and red Ceramica GMT, and this is also the other half of the review is on the Steinhart Ocean 39 Vintage GMT Premium, and I think these are very comparable, and I'm trying to decide which one to keep. I would like to keep both, but I really should choose one or the other, and they have, you know, their own pluses and negatives, which I'll try to quickly go over. Excuse me, still recovering from a cold, so hang on a second. Okay, so let's go into the Squale first. Let's closer look. Sorry, it's a little smudgy. Just had this on the wrist. I've been trying to figure out which one is more eye-catching. And not to say this one is. I'll go over the specs real quick. This one is 40 millimeters. Oh, hold on. Millimeters. I know this is 40 millimeters, but I'm just going to measure it anyways. A little bit over. Oh, actually, no, 40. And lug to lug is about 48. And the lug is obviously, not obviously, but it is 20 millimeters. And the thickness is, I believe, a little over 12.5 essentially. And yeah, this has a ceramic bezel. It's fully loomed. Both watches are running off of the Swissetta 2893-2 elaborate grade. GMT watch. It's not a true GMT in the sense that, you know, when you pull the crown into the first position, like with a Rolex, an actual Rolex, you at least the GMT Master 2s, you can quick set the hour, which is better because with this you set one direction sets the date, the other one advances the GMT hand around to you where you need it. I think it's better when you can just advance the hour, because you know, you can just, it would be better to keep your local time zone on the main hands, and then when you change that, then at least the GMT hand stays at your home time. It's probably a more logical way to do it than to adjust your GMT hand to the new local time and then try to read off of that, right? Or conversely, rotate the bezel till you get the, you know, whatever it is, you know, 11 hours ahead or something, and trying to read off of this still. And then your home time would still be on your main hour and hand and minutes, which is a little bit backwards, you know. But it is what it is. Still good movement. It's just, I would say still it's not the most ideal, but it's the most common GMT movement, Swiss one that you can get. Yeah, so just have to deal with that. This is a unidirectional bezel, which was bidirectional, but it's not a deal breaker. I've had these many times. It rotates pretty good, as you can hear. 120 click. And there, and it lines up good. Not too much backplay at all. Let's see, and it tapers down to 18 millimeters. The taper on this one is a little bit better, but or not necessarily better, but more. It's got applied indices, and as you can see, it's got like a gold set hands and around the indices, but it's not so. I think it works actually. I kind of like it. There's no cyclops, which I kind of prefer, because those can be dust magnets, and it just adds this extra thing on top of the crystal, which I don't know. It's just not as clean to look. Screw down crown. 200 meters, I'm sorry, 300 meters water resistance. They both are, so they're very comfortably spec'd. And let's see, what I like about this and where I got this was which had a cleaning cloth with me. I like the GMT Masters, the Pepsi version, and the Batman, but the Pepsi more. But I don't know. I think around 4th of July, I've seen this before, but then I noticed some celebrities had a real Rolex GMT Master 2 on their wrist, and just from a distance, even slightly hidden from the cuff, just seeing that red and blue pop off and of the wrist, and the way that this new case shape is, it's kind of a little bit wide and it kind of spreads out. It sits nicely on the wrist, and there's this very good look from a distance, and just the highlights of the polish, and even the indices, these subtle things that even from a distance they just all add up to make a very nice presence off the wrist. And so I looked around, and I remember this one came out very recently around that time, so I decided to go with it. And this is a one that's only exclusive to Nomon watches, as far as I know, and they don't always have it. They try to limit the production, so try to make it somewhat exclusive. It isn't a limited edition. It's just they just don't usually put too much of these out. So luckily at that time, when I was interested, they were out, and I asked when they'd get it, and they just got some in stock, so I pulled the trigger and went for it. And I don't regret it. It's very nice. It has, if you're really going for that Rolex look, I mean, this has that case shape, very darn similar to it. Something about the way these Jubilee is made. You can see this one's actually a little more, slightly more flatter. If you can see, it's not as, bulbous or rounded. This got a little bit more meat on it. But mainly the case, the way it's shaped here, and particularly the lugs. The crown guards. The way that's shaped and the proportions of it, like the way it comes out here. It's a little bit of a maxi case, just like the GMT, the new ones are, but it's not quite as wide, I think, as like, say, the Submariners. So it's just enough, and it's a nice presence on this. And the colors are good. It's very vibrant. What drew me to it was the red bezel part. It's got this almost metallic look to it. I don't know if you can see that. And it's very deep and dynamic, but then on the other hand, this half is it's more like a Batman blue. It's brighter. It's even more vibrant than what the Pepsi blue usually are. It's a little bit darker like this, or maybe not quite as dark as that. Somewhere a bit step down. But it looks good on the wrist. And then coupled with the yellow or the gold, I have this recent liking to primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. For some reason, it was on one of my Seiko mods. I accented it with some red, yellow, and blue on an all black watch, and it looked pretty good. And it kind of follows the same color theory, I guess. And I think it just works. It's just an added warmth and richness into the details that it's not on other homages of this type. They usually just stick with the plain silver and try to go even more one-to-one with the Rolex, model that they try to draw from. So I think it looks good. It just has that right amount. This lighting kind of sucks for this, but under more extreme lighting in the car, and this isn't a shade, but then the light catches these indices, they just kind of just pop off the dial, which is nice. And this bracelet is comfortable. It feels good. It's well built. Easy to unlock, but it is secure enough. It's not to worry about it falling apart. So there is no display back. It's just plain, but that's okay. I would say when I did open it up to regulate it, just to make it a little bit tighter, it's not as decorated as the Steinhart. It just has the perlage work and stuff, and I believe what was in the back of this is a little bit more plain. It wasn't decorated to that degree, actually. So anyways, it's been a great run. After I regulate it, I think I'm getting maybe at most +4 seconds a day. And yeah, it looks great. I think if you want something that looks very close to the Rolex, GMT Master 2, the newest version on the Jubilee, this would be it. Now the negatives are, for me, there's very few. Mainly starters, the bezel, although I like the vibrancy of it, it's the blue and the red are a little bit, there's a discord there. Mainly, this seems deeper and, again, more metallic almost in finish, whereas this is very solid and bright and brighter. And so, it just looks like two different concepts going here in terms of colorway and tone. This would have been better if they had, at least in my opinion, just darkened it a bit, and if possible, given it this kind of whatever this finish that they did with this bottom half in the red, where it makes it almost looks like like red aluminum. That they could make it look like some sort of blue metallic, almost like aluminum kind of color tone to it. I think that would have looked more, more consistent. As it is, it feels like two different ideas going on here. I mean, I can live with it, but I would have preferred that if they made it better. Which I think, though the colors are different, I think this actually works better together than these two. That's what I think. But more importantly, I find that the loom on here is not that great. It's good, actually. It's decent, but where it matters is where it's weak. Let me see if I can turn off the lights and show you. Okay, let me give it a charge. Just get this Steinhart to charge too. Right now, initially it looks fine, but you can pretty much instantly tell that the minute hand is weak. And my eye, in person, is much brighter than what I can show here. Maybe if let's see if I tone this, try to pull it up like this. I hope it won't go dark on me. Actually, the bezel is the strongest, surprisingly. Usually it's the reverse. I find bezels to be the weakest, but this is really good bezel glow, and that's the strongest and probably the longer lasting. And then next would be the dial. Let me switch the ISO here. Okay, anyways. And then the dial, and then the hands. I'm going to blast it again so we can see it better. And then the hands are the weakest and the last. Which is really the backwards. You should have the hands the strongest, then the dial, and then the outer the bezel to be the weakest, right? Because if anything all fails, at least the hour and minute hand should be legible in the dark, so you can still make out by the positioning what time it is. Still, we all are familiar with the shape and patterns that time makes, and you can make it out. But this gets quite dim. After, like, say, if I charged it at midnight and just before dawn, like 5-6 a.m., it's just barely legible, and it has to be pretty dark for me to be able to pick it up. I can, but it's not the best compared to some other ones I've had where I've been able to look at it just fine. It's dim, but it's still just strong enough for me to still make out. And so that would be the weakest point, and that's kind of why, like, I'm not sure if I want to keep it, because I'm a bit of a loom junkie, so that kind of matters to me, that I can see this in the dark, and especially it should be all consistent, or at the very least the hand should stand out the most. So anyways, I mean, I am glad that they loomed everything. That looks good, and I don't understand why Rolex doesn't do that. I think it's kind of useful to have. You have a GMT hand. Yeah, you should actually have the bezel to work with it as well. So all the time that you can read is visible in low light. But they don't do it, so that's a plus on at least Squale's side here, and other manufacturers that do a similar style and fully loom everything like this. So let me get back to normal lighting. So, and those are my main two negatives. Other than that, it's not really to complain about. It looks nice on the wrist. Let's see, am I too close? Give you another wrist shot again. I think I had before, but it curves just right for my 6.875 inch wrist. it just sits and wears pretty darn good. Let's see if I can back up here for a moment. And I do like the way it colors pops, although I find it inconsistent between that blue and red still. I just think, like, see how it just looks more reflective and a little bit more dynamic with the red, whereas the blue is more solid and flat across. Yeah, but I mean, overall it still pops out nice, and with the highlights of the high polish details and off of the indices as well, together it looks actually quite good on the wrist. So that being said, I still would recommend this watch, but if you're not as bothered by the weaker lume, I think, on the hands and the way these colors actually work together or don't, then yeah, go for it. It's not bad, but you can only get Nomon, and again, it's a limited supply. It comes and goes. So let's jump into the Steinhart. This is the Ocean 39 Vintage GMT Premium, and it's a good watch. It's 39 millimeters across, lug to lug. Let's see here. It should be a little bit shorter, 47.4, almost 47.4, somewhere around there. Right, it's 47 and a half, so it's about, about half a millimeter shorter, not by much. But the thickness is actually a little bit more, I think, is that right? It's actually 14. I think it's the extra height from the dome crystal, whereas that one is flat. But yeah, it's showing me about 14. But I have to say, it's when you wear it on the wrist, it doesn't seem that tall. By two, almost. What was this? 12 and a half. Sorry, spaced out and I forgot. I think it was 12 and a half. Yeah, about 12 and a half. So about a millimeter and a half thicker. But I think you can say that the way the thing is cut, the mid case is actually slimmer than this one. Compare them, right? It's a bit slimmer. So it actually, when you put it on, and the only edge that you catch is this, mostly from most angles. It looks thinner on the wrist, anyways. So that helps, and then of course it sinks into your wrist a bit too, and that helps. You do have drill lug holes, right? So that's good. I think that's a big bonus for this one. I kind of like this. It usually comes on a stock oyster style bracelet, but if you saw my review on the 39 500, the Batman version, I have a video on that. You always understand why I also didn't like the oyster, and I opted for the Jubilee. But I'd probably wear it still, but I do like it on this more. And this is Steinhart's, so it's a perfect fit. And I do like the fact that there is no high polishing. It's all brushed across the top. It's only on the side, which matches high polishing on the side, which matches the case. Only has it on the side pretty much. So it gives it a more tooly look to me. But just has a little accent here with the highlights, high polish, just to make it not look too flat. Different from my 500 GMT Premium, the Batman. This bezel is, I think, it looks like it's made a little bit differently. It definitely has a different finish. That was high polish, which didn't help with the really poor bezel action and grip to turn that poor bezel action. This one, which was why I was reluctant to pick this up, this one actually has a good bezel action. I don't have any of that really hard resistance that I had with the 39. I mean, you only could hold it in certain positions, and for the most part, you kind of needed two hands to try to do it. It was terrible. But I did ask Steinhart before in my notes to have them check the bezel action and make sure it's not too stiff before they send it out to me. I don't know if they did, or did I just get the luck of the draw, but it works this time, and I think the way this is cut sharper and a little bit deeper than that one. Let me put these together. You can see this one's tighter. There's a lot more smaller ones. These are a little bit more broad, as you can see. So that's the difference, and the fact that it's brushed helps with the grip. I kind of don't like high polish edges in general, and especially if you need to grip it, it's just slipperier, more slippery. So that's another bonus for this. And you know, for a 300-meter water resistant watch at this size, it's still very good. The clasp is actually pretty nice on this. I've had very stiff ones from Steinhart before too, like once you put it on, trying to pull this off, like you hurt your finger. I'd have to go like from behind and pop it out. But this one, it is, you know, firm, but I can at least open it, and it does have a very nice solid feeling to it when I snap it and even pull it apart. It doesn't feel loosey-goosey. It's just something you have to feel, but it feels, you know, pretty quality. And this does taper from 20 down to 16. Actually, yeah, 16. So it's a bit more dramatic, and I think it's actually a little bit nicer for the style watch too. It's more vintage. They tend to be a little bit thinner in the bracelets and strap wear anyway, so the fact that it can go down to 16 is good. Just adds to the comfort. It has a display case back, and the movement is, I can't show you this one, but like I said, between the two I've seen inside here. It's not bad, but it's not, doesn't have a gold rotor, it just says Squale, you know, and I think I'm pretty sure there's definitely more perlage work on this one than that. But they are supposed to be, I believe, the same at a 2893-2 elaborate grade. And functionality, it's the same. It's just a full loom bezel, which is cool. And I like this because it's a reference. It's mostly inspired by pretty much the first GMT Master that didn't even have crown guards too, and had the bakelite bezel. This is ceramic, but it's supposed to mimic that kind of look. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick on the screen here. And I like that. I like the vintage look. I had the Ocean, the 42mm Ocean 1 dual time Vintage GMT Premium, silver dial, a thin aluminum bezel, but had the patina work, silver dial. Had a box dome, sapphire. It looked apart, but that size at 42mm didn't do it for me. Well, it was okay, but in retrospect, not so well, because these lugs, as you know, they don't quite curve down as well as this guy here, and so they're a little bit straight, but they do curve down. And then when you couple with the fact that larger one was like 50, maybe even 51mm, it really does on my wrist look like it kind of jutted out a bit across the wristbone, right? So let's try this again. How come I can't log in? Oops. Using the wrong password. So anyways, see, so just a quick look here. If you can see that, you know, this looks closest to something like that. And then on this side, right, we have something that looks like that, right? Can you focus? There you go. Something. I'm trying to put it together. And the color, like white balance, is off because the screen has a different color temperature than what's in this room. So you're gonna have to take my word that this looks closer together, actually, but then what you might be seeing through this video. But yeah, it's pretty much very good in terms of like making the faux vintage look, and the discoloration of the bezel, where this is kind of faded and this is darkened. Just what's kind of going on, you know, back here and like there and so forth. And I thought, and also, you know, some people were saying, oh, shouldn't the date window be patinaed? To some degree, yes, but I think in all the examples I've ever seen, if you can make it out here, the date window somehow retains white. I guess it just doesn't have that much constant exposure because it's just the date disc is hidden behind the dial for the most part, except for this opening, and that only gets exposed to sunlight probably like half a day, right, for each number. So anyways, there we go. So it does loom very similarly like the Bakelite version of the Rolex does. So I like that. All together, it's got that look and feel, which is cool. It's just the bezel detail is different than the Rolex. Theirs is actually thinner and more coinage. It's a lower profile, and again, they actually have a box sapphire crystal versus this is domed, a little more simpler dome, but it's clean. I like the way that it. Sorry about the. You can see the curvature matches the profile of the bezel, so it just kind of goes right across. So it's very clean and it looks good like that. And yeah, what else can I say? Any bad spots? Not a whole lot. I might say possibly if that blue could have been just a tad brighter, that might have been a little bit better for me. In outdoor sunlight, it really does kind of pick up some vibrancy, but in this shitty indoor lighting, not so much. I'm okay with the color of this red here. It is, dulled down, and it's almost like a dark pink almost. Still red, but it's like a faded red, and so I think that looks appropriate for this style of watch. I like the fact that it doesn't have crown guards. I actually like this look more for the most part for most of my watches. It's just a cleaner look to me. You don't have this extra bulk, and I just like a vintage look, and usually they don't have crown guards, and that's where it goes. And I like this jumbo crown. It's very easy to grip, and it looks right for something like this. And that's that, I guess. So did I have any negatives on this? So far it's running pretty good. I might have to tweak it to go a little bit slower. I think it's running maybe 6 seconds, maybe 8. I have to recheck my notes. This is just like 2 days old. But I figure movement wise, nothing to really compare, really debate with that guy here in terms of the movement. We'll just focus on the aesthetics, really, the design. And everything else, a lot of these details that are within this watch model line, the Ocean 39, I pretty much covered in my the Batman one with the GMT, the 500 meter premium one. I did a little while back. So have a look at that if you want a little bit more insight into this kind of Ocean 39 line of GMT models. So here's how it sits on my wrist. Not bad, but it could curve down more, but I'm not really bothered by that. Overall, I mean, you don't usually put your wrist like this. It's kind of up. I think it curves up like this more, and that's it. And there's no overhang really, and it's comfortable. It's fine. It's a good bracelet actually. It's very solid, and that's where it goes. Let me back up a little bit. And let's get into the comparisons. To compare these two, 40 versus 39, not a big difference, but is noticeable, especially since this has the beefier lugs and the crown guards, and the shape of the case comparatively, just the way it's cut. And I do think that even like when it's got some more high polished surfaces, seemingly, that adds to the visual weight of it. It just kind of shines, reflects, and so it looks a little bit bigger. The bezel also makes it look bigger too. It's just got more bolt numbers. It is maybe slightly thicker in terms of width going around. And yeah, this does have more wrist presence. It's supposed to pop. It's supposed to be like jewelry. I think at least the newer Rolexes are not just tool watches anymore, right? They definitely have more flash to them than before, and this gives me that feel, which is nice. I do like this one on the daylight and most lighting situations. It really does come alive and pop. Makes me feel good. I just am disappointed by the loom. Could be better. I could possibly live with it, but yeah, it's not the best. And let me show you this one. This is fully loomed too, but this will hold better. I'm not going to turn off the lights, but you can gauge it. It's actually quite good. I just tested it out the other night, yesterday, and yeah, no problem. It was good to read all throughout the night till morning, unlike this one. And I think they actually put more loom. What's in here is thicker in the minute hand too, so that helps out. And it's consistent. Not one of these things are actually necessarily brighter than the other in actuality. They all pretty even, so that's great that it just looks consistent throughout. I was going to say about these. I mean, if you really want a Rolex look, you know, with the case and the proportions, this is 40. And then, you know, this could be silver if you really wanted to make it look closer to it, and a Cyclops, but I don't like that. This would be a good option to go for. What does this run? 700, I think, on Nomon. This is basically, this would have been a little bit less, but I added the Jubilee because I preferred that, and so it ended up being actually a little bit more than that. But you do get the better loom, I'd say. I like the drill lug hose because I like changing straps a lot. If you want that vintage flavor, this definitely has it more. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. These are like two extremes of Rolex's GMT range. This is like probably an homage to the very first example of the GMT Master in the 6542, and I don't forget what the Rolex is. Is it the 12? I'm trying to read it off of here. 126710B LRO, something like that. This is like the newest one. So nothing in between. Well, there are, but I don't have it. But you know, so they are based on the same general model, yet they're quite different. I mean, the look and feel is really different. And so I don't know. I mean, in some ways I can justify having both. You know, you feel like being a little bit more flashy and it's like that pop and stuff. You want to be more colorful? Go with this. Keep it simpler, more subdued. You feel like, you know, being a little bit more. In some ways, I feel it's a little classier because it's just toned down more. It's not so in your face, especially with the size of the numbers, which I kind of prefer over that. I always felt these were a little bit oversized. On here, they're a little bit too bold and in your face, whereas this is smaller and they're more subtle and discreet. And I think that's actually kind of a better look. Yeah, and let's see here. You look at the handset, similar, but this GMT reads well, but I don't know if you need that triangle that big. This works, but I would say I think the length of these is better. They're just ever so slightly longer. You can see like our hand, like the little stem at the back of the Mercedes part this is a little longer, so it's actually a little longer this way. And I think when it goes, it might actually meet the edge of these indices. There's 12, 9, and 6. The minute hand, the point goes all the way to the edge, which is cool. It touches, you can see there, it touches the markers. Whereas this one, it's just shy of it. I don't know if you can see that. I mean, you should be able to read it still, but you know, it's just these little details. And of course, again, running second hands also go all the way to the edge I think right on the outer edge, as you can see that, which is nice. It looks like, you know, it just gives you that sense of precision. Versus this is about the same as the minute hand, so it's just shy of touching any of the indices. That's one thing that you care about these details, then I'm just pointing them out to you. And lastly, the GMT hand also goes all the way to the edge of the minute track, which is, I think, better too. It's just making that contact rather precisely there. It's a nice look compared to this. I think this is how it is on the Rolex anyways. For the modern one, let me see if I can bring up a picture of it. Great, the thing. But anyways, it doesn't reach there. It kind of floats somewhere in the middle. in between, you know, not quite pulled back enough to for the back end meets this indices, and not quite forward enough to hit the markings either. So these are just some of the details, if that matters. So that's why I kind of dig the way that this kind of goes all the way out, clean and precisely to the markings, versus these just seem a little bit short of that. But I mean, if you're not really looking that closely, I mean, overall it still looks great. I cannot type in my password while I'm on here. Yeah, let's see here. I'm just trying to see a picture of the GMT Master. Well, you know what? If you look at this, it actually, come on, zoom in for me. It does meet the edge of the indices, huh? So this one is just, you see, it is short, definitely shorter. And if you look closely, actually, these hands, the minute hands should even touch the very edge of, or the tip of those little markings as well. Versus this one, you can see it is just shy of that, right? The hour hand's hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure it's also just a little bit shorter than the proportions of this guy, possibly. That doesn't matter as much, but you know, and then the seconds hands, it's pretty much touching it. Maybe it's just a tiny bit shorter. Yeah, I think it is. I'm looking at like this picture here too. It looks like it doesn't quite meet the line. In that respect, that's closer to the way this is. So, yeah. Anyways, these are just some of the differences between the real one and between these two. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'll see. Right at this point, I like both, but I probably am leaning more towards this one, keeping this one, and probably sell this one. So, anyways, if you're interested, I don't think you can reach me on YouTube. They don't really have a direct messaging, but look for me at Chrono Craze on Instagram, at Chrono Craze, KHRONOKRAZE. You can, you know, message me there or on Facebook, Wing, yep, WINGYP. I don't know, put my name, put in one of these model numbers, and or something like that, and you'll probably find my posts. I've done quite a bit, and you can probably find me through there. And that's basically it. So hopefully this was helpful and informative, and maybe you sway one way or the other, despite what I prefer, you know. Some people still like this one because it looks modern and it's clean, and it's actually pretty legible, and it looks good. It does look good. Some prefer this, the more subtle version, and the more classic, original, very first GMT look here, and that, you know, just that vintage look. And this one does a pretty darn good job, probably the best out of any homage watches that try to do this, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, thanks, and I'll catch you some other time. Thanks, bye.